Mhm. Oh, there's a shot. Cornwall and Broad. New York Stock Exchange closes at 4 o'clock on the dot. We open at 4 o'clock on the dot. Markets a little weaker today. Big news coming on after the market. Markets were down. Let's see the stock market. The Dow Jones looks like down 245 points ballpark. Looks like we're down. NASDAQ 98. There we go. Dow down 294. Mad Dog, you have me? Bro, can you hear me? My dog? Anyway, I'm going to just keep going. There we go. Dow down 294. NASDAQ down 111. We have some big news coming out in probably just in the next 5 minutes or so. NVIDIA stock, probably the president's favorite stock, a chip stock, AI chip stock, comes out with earnings. So there's a lot of anticipation on what's going to happen with NVIDIA. I think the whole stock market is going to follow NVIDIA up or down tomorrow. So keep our eye on it. Crypto backed off a little bit, 106,900. Remember, a couple of days ago, we were up to 111,900. So it's backing off a little bit. Again, markets take breathers. That's the markets. My first guest, watching every city in his state turn into dens of illegal criminal aliens, and he's talking and taking action to make a change. He went to CCOT, that's that prison in El Salvador, and praised President Bukele's leadership in taking back his country from the violent gangs. Congressman Andy Ogles has set out to do the same thing in Tennessee. Welcome, Congressman. Good to have you back, my friend. So tell us, first of all, tell us about CCOT. I mean, you want to talk about scared straight. Remember back in the day, there was a thing called Scared Straight to teach kids not to do drugs and do bad things and become criminals because they go inside prisons. You know, one look inside those El Salvador prisons, and maybe these illegals would think twice about coming across the border to the United States if they're going to get sent there. Your thoughts, sir? The floor is yours.
Well, I mean, if you look at CCOT, go back 40 years, El Salvador has been wrought with civil war, dictators. The gangs came in and took over, violence. And President Bukele came in and said zero tolerance to the gangs and started putting people in prison where they belong. So I visited that notorious prison, but quite frankly, it's only notorious because of the people that are there. They're treated humanely. They have access to legal and to medical and food and all of those sorts of things. But I mean, when I met with, one of them was from Nashville, but I spoke to one of the individuals there, and the question was asked, why are you in here? He said homicide, just very plainly and matter-of-factly. Then the question is asked, well, how many people have you killed? And he said 50. And this is someone who'd been in the country and in the United States since the age of 13, operating between Virginia and New Hampshire. So this is someone, a violent member of MS-13, operating on the East Coast, has killed dozens and dozens of people. And he was like, 50, and so this is who we're deporting. This is who ICE went after in Nashville. And this is who the mayor of Nashville is defending. I, for one, have had enough of that type of crap.
Congressman, you talked to this criminal thug in jail, and he said he killed 50 people. He had 50 kills under his belt, and he's been in the United States since he's 13. I assume the 50 didn't happen when he was, when he was 5, 7, and 8 years old. Most of them probably had happened after he was 13 in the United States, right?
Yeah, all this was part of his gang activity on the East Coast. And again, as you look at, we have our photographs of the trip on social media, and all these guys are tatted up. You can see, and literally they're tattooed with all the people they've killed. And, in the gang world, it's all about respect. It's all about power. There's no friendship. It's about being ruthless. And again, that question was asked, did you have any friends in the gangs? He said, friends will get you killed. It's all about power and respect. And so these guys kill for power, they steal for power, they, maim for power, and that's who Joe Biden led into this country. That's who these wokeivist mayors are allowing to operate in our cities. And as someone who's on the Homeland Security Committee, I've seen the classified data. They're operating here all across the United States of America, these gangs, and there's not even in Tennessee, rural Tennessee, there's not a city in Tennessee that you don't have some type of operation with these violent gangs of MS-13 and Trinidad and so many others. But that being said, we've got to take back our cities. We've got to have a zero tolerance policy. If Bukele can clean up El Salvador, we can clean up our streets as well. But these gangs are bringing violence into the homeland. They are ruthless, and they want your street corners. They want your kids. They want to peddle their drugs and sex trafficking and all the other stuff. So these are not nice people. And again, I'm for one, I'm fighting back, which is why I called for an investigation.
Yeah, I'm guessing when you're interviewing this thug that killed 50 people, you didn't see Senator Van Hollen there trying to get him returned to Maryland by chance, or some of the other the squad members who were complaining about Trump's deportation policies. Here, let's get to last time you were on. You were talking about the mayor of Nashville, Tennessee. I think you said that he insists on keeping Nashville a sanctuary city. Where is that? How is that progressing? What are you guys doing about it?
Yeah, so if it hasn't already, we have a letter going out. It's a joint letter between the Homeland Security and Judiciary Committees beginning an investigation into the city of Nashville and the mayor, and to see if any federal monies went into aiding and abetting illegal aliens. And then we just found out today the mayor has posted, and we've got pictures that we'll put on social media, where the mayor is literally putting out and tracking ICE agents and putting their names on the internet so that people can evade law enforcement. And then also, I would argue that he's putting both federal and local law enforcement in harm's way. So I've got a zero tolerance policy towards this kind of stuff. Like, if you're putting law enforcement in harm's way, if you're aiding and abetting criminals, something's got to be done about it. We're going to have an investigation. I sent all of that information I just mentioned to the Judiciary Committee and Jim Jordan, and we'll be moving forward as quickly as we can.
Congressman, I'm going to back you up on something there. Law enforcement, here in Orlando, I rode with several agencies, ICE, DEA, FBI, and others. And they did a bust, and we filmed it, and we're going to bring that probably to the folks tomorrow, as just show everything we've done over the last couple of days. But every one of them was wearing a mask. And I said, well, what's that all about? And they said, literally, Tren de la Agua has very sophisticated facial recognition software. So all they need is a picture of someone's face, and they can find out where they live and where their families are. They're a very, very dangerous group of people.
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to some of that classified data, without going into details, I can tell you that most of these gangs, they're large criminal enterprises. They're a corporation, and they have very sophisticated surveillance capabilities that is, quite frankly, frightening. And so when you have the mayor of Nashville literally listing the names of agents and law enforcement on the internet, you're putting them and their families in harm's way, whether you intend to or not. And again, it's done. He's saying, in the name of transparency, look, it's one thing to release data. You do it a week or 10 days later. However you want to do it, that kind of thing. But when you're naming names, when you're putting their names on the internet, when something goes bad, and it's only a matter of time before something like that might happen, there could be very well criminal and, of course, civil penalties that ensue. And so we've got to get him to take this down. Again, I've turned over this information. And to your point, they're sophisticated. MS-13, all the other kind of spinoffs from MS-13, Tren de Agua, they are criminal enterprises. They are corporations, and they can surveil law enforcement and find out where they live very, very quickly.
Yeah, it's insane. Insane that the mayor would do this. Right. Freddie O'Connell, I believe his name. But now you also posted on X that these criminal gangs are operating in every major city in the state of Tennessee. It's prevalent. I think the folks need to understand exactly how prevalent these gangs are. By the way, is it just Tren de Agua? Is it MS-13? Is it both? Are there more?
Yeah, so when you look at the gangs and look how Mexico is structured, Central America, you have all these different families of gangs that operate, and so in different areas, both in Mexico, Central America, and then here in the United States, different gangs have different territories, and it's divided up. And obviously, as you have a city like Nashville, which is one of the IT cities, geographically we're situated within about 6 hours of most of the population of the country, minus the West Coast, and so it is a very desired territory. I think you're going to see increased gang violence in the coming years if we don't nip this in the bud. And so again, for the mayor of Nashville to be defending criminals and thugs, murderers and rapists, for him to be putting law enforcement's names out on the internet, he's making Nashville less safe. and he's quite frankly enabling and empowering the very people that want to steal from you. And again, Brentwood is just south of Nashville. It's a very affluent part of the country, part of the state, but a part of the country. And that being said, we just caught a Chilean, again, criminal enterprise gang operating and systematically robbing homes in Brentwood. And this is the second ones of that type of gang that we've caught in suburban Nashville. So they're moving into our city, they're moving into your city, and it's only a matter of time. And because there's so many people here illegally because of Joe Biden, we're seeing a rapid escalation in their operations that they're setting up across the country. And look, so they want Nashville, but they want all the communities around Nashville. They want Chattanooga. They want all the communities around Chattanooga. And you just go down the list. So whether it's Chicago or D.C. or Atlanta or Orlando, all across the nation, you have very sophisticated operations, whether it's distribution of drugs, whether it's sex trafficking, and of course, surveillance of law enforcement.
Yeah, it's almost to the point where, and maybe this is your idea, that you have to make an example out of some of these chief executives of these cities. Otherwise, they're going to keep doing it, and they're going to make the cities more and more dangerous. I don't know. It seems like it should be illegal to dox, and that's what they're doing. Dox officers. It's not illegal, and it certainly should be. If it's not, maybe start doxing these mayors. Put out on the internet where these mayors live and say, hey, you want to be an illegal? You want to stay in this country? Here's the mayor's house. Go camp out in his backyard.
Well, I'm not going to encourage that, and I'll vote no on that one. But I get your point that when you're putting names and again, it's not that hard with the internet being what it is, with social media being what it is, and literally the law enforcement having to wear masks because of facial recognition software. This has been escalated in Nashville because of the reckless woketivist activism of this city mayor. He, quite frankly, in my opinion, needs to be voted out. There's not an election upcoming, but when that day occurs, I think the city of Nashville is going to say, we've had enough of this nonsense. And look, we can disagree on immigration policy. We can disagree on what do you do with the people who are here or whatnot. But when you're putting law enforcement in harm's way, that's a whole separate conversation. It's reckless. It's stupid. And again, that's why I've called for an investigation.
No, well, investigate. I will tell you that it's one of the biggest fears on law enforcement. We were riding with them, and they just didn't want their identity exposed to these gangs because they're bad. They're badass. I'm allowed to say that on TV. They're badass. Congressman, appreciate you, and you keep us up to speed on how your bill and how your request for the investigation progresses. Thank you so much, Congressman. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We had to break. I want to remind you, the podcast, it's blowing up over there, folks. Thank you for subscribing. Jump over there, subscribe to the Bolling Podcast. We're updating you every single day on this Diddy trial. Today, Barack Obama was brought up again. His name was brought up. You want the context? Subscribe. Go watch it over there. We'll be back in 2.5 minutes. Look at that, Mad Dog. New Mexico, you said? New Mexico. You said it was a hill. I mean, is it a golf course, perhaps? Maybe?
No, it's just a hill in New Mexico. I just found it.
Folks, you can only get pictures of a hill in New Mexico on the Bolling Show on Rab. If you want hills, you want to see hills in New Mexico? The only place on the whole internet, cable TV, broadcast TV, you got to come to Bolling Show. You get hills in New Mexico. That's what I'm talking about. All right, my next guest has been out on the border when illegals were flooding across, and he's been out there now to see the difference that President Trump has made. Here to give us an update on the border is host of the Green Line podcast and VP of National Border Patrol, Art Del Cueto. Art, really good to have you, my friend. So I was talking to you in the break. I was talking to you in break, and here in Orlando, we did a couple of ride-alongs, and we caught some really, really bad guys, some Tren Del Lago guys. One was accused of murder, another assault with a deadly weapon, intent to kill. We popped him, and here's the point I was trying to make. It was I was brought in to film it. It was amazing. And it was agencies. ICE set it up. Homeland Security set it up. ICE was the lead on it. FBI was there. Florida Highway Patrol were badasses, dude. They came in and they lit them up and caught the guy. I have a couple of pictures. If I can just show you. Here's us. That gentleman right there runs the ICE station in Orlando. That's Norm. I don't want to say his last name. He allowed me to put his face on picture. Here I am with some FBI agents and HSI, Homeland Security investigators. A group of 22 individuals. And again, like I said, Florida Highway Patrol rolled up, got the guy in the truck at both sides, arrested him, and put him away. And the thing we were just talking to Congressman Ogles about before is to all these folks here, when they're doing the arrest and when we're in front of these people, they're wearing masks because they're really concerned about MS-13 and Trent Agua. Recognize all they need is a picture, and these guys are on the internet, and their lives and their families' lives are at risk. Art, floor is yours.
No, absolutely. Look, myself, I've been on the front lines and I've been very vocal of it about all the issues for several administrations. I've had several threat assessments because of the, death threats that I've received myself. So I don't blame these individuals for covering up their face. Because, the tentacles of these crime waves and these crime enterprises, they reach far. So I don't blame them. Look, I don't want anyone else to have to go through what I've had to go through with these threat assessments and, just the thought of having somebody threaten against your life. So I know a lot of people have been criticizing them and saying, why do they cover their faces? Well, they weren't criticizing the Antifa guys when they were covering their faces. But this just shows the dangers that these men and women continue to face. The numbers have trickled down, absolutely. But these guys have made billions of dollars the last 4 years. So the desperation for them to continue to come across, continue to do something is not going to stop. That's why, hats off to the men and women that are out there putting their lives on the line, trying to make sure that we keep our nations safe. And you know what? I got something for you. Don't be telling people what they got arrested for, because you may have some congressmen or some politicians on the far left that decide to go out there and visit them once they're looking for new martyrs. Because just that radical left sure can't make up their mind who the good guys and who the bad guys are. They
pretty much the good guys are the ones who are accused of crimes, and the bad guys are the ones who are the victims. That for whatever reason, the left thinks that's a great political strategy. Didn't work. It probably won't work. So, apprehensions are down. Trump will say 94% plus. These gangs are still trying to make money. What are they doing instead of getting caught at the border? Are they going underneath? And then I really want to talk about the force multiplier effect of all these agencies getting together. But what are these gangs doing in the meantime, cartels doing in the meantime to make money?
So what they'll do is they're going to continue to get creative. Back when it was harder to come across, they were very creative with, the way they were bringing people across, the way they're bringing drugs across. You're seeing the drugs inside the vehicles again, hidden in different compartments. You're seeing it hidden in gas tanks of vehicles as it's coming through the ports and through different areas of the desert. And that's because they realize that it's harder to come across. Before the last 4 years, all they had to do was send a group of individuals that were going to ask for asylum. And then once all the law enforcement would go to that spot, they were then going to be able to come across somewhere else when it was empty and bring drugs across. Now they can't do that. Now they realize that there's agents out there, there's law enforcement out there trying to detain them, trying to deter what's coming across. So they're implementing, different tactics like disguising different vehicles, putting, drugs in tires, putting drugs inside gas tanks. They're using more remote areas where they're crossing individuals into the U.S., trying to avoid and evade law enforcement from even detecting them.
So the ICE agents were very, very thankful that Florida Highway Patrol, FHP, were involved. They're super helpful. And they said only since Trump came into office and Homeland Security, the rules have been, I don't know if they're relaxed or what, but they're welcoming more agencies to crack down on the illegals that they're finding in communities. Force multiplier is what they're calling it.
That's what it is. It's force multiplier because you're using all the force and you're using all the tools at your disposal. You're utilizing all the agencies that you can to try to stop the criminals. I mean, what a novel idea, right? Let's unite law enforcement to catch bad guys. And even yourself going out there and being able to see firsthand what they were doing. That was unheard of the last 4 years. They wouldn't have allowed you to do that because they didn't want you to be out there filming how bad these individuals were. I just hope it spreads throughout other states. Look, I'm out in Arizona. Arizona, and we've had a lot of issues here with the local governments and the governor out here not being very helpful with allowing her, state troopers and everything else to work hand in hand with Border Patrol, HSI, ICE, all those individuals. So I just hope all the states follow suit. At the end of the day, we want to go catch the bad guys. And the bad guys and the drug cartels and the human smuggling organizations, they don't care what side of the aisle any Americans have voted on. All they care about is endangering American lives and flooding our streets with drugs. That's their number one priority. So I really, truly hope that a lot of these politicians realize the error in their ways and realize we need to make sure that law enforcement all works together in order to go after the criminals.
Art, we just literally did a segment right before you with Congressman Andy Ogles from Tennessee, who's got a real issue with the mayor of Nashville, Tennessee, a Democrat named Freddie O'Connell, who's posting the names, identities of the agents that are arresting illegals, posting them online. What's Art Del Cueto's message to Mayor Freddie O'Connell?
I think they should be ashamed of themselves, and they should be, actually charged with putting people's lives at risk and at danger. And I'm telling you, I have been in that situation once too many times. Every time I've spoken with President Trump, in a public setting, I get flooded with death threats and everything else. I don't wish that upon anyone else. That's why I've always been at the forefront wanting to speak and say the truth to the American public, because I don't want those individuals to have to deal with it. But to have an actual mayor to pretty much serve the names of these, law enforcement officers to the drug entities, to the drug cartels. It's just very, very shameful. And some charges need to be brought up against that individual.
Yeah, I wish, he's trying to do an investigation. And anyway, Art Del Cueto, appreciate your time, man. Stay safe, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate you and everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right, we'll be back. 2.5 minutes, folks. Read it for me, Mad Dog. Read it for me.
Sorry, it's not New Mexico. It's Texas.
It's a Texas flag. Yeah,
it's Texas.
And what city? I can't read it from here. The
Seagraves.
Seagraves. Got it. Okay, beautiful. Because remember, if you want hills in New Mexico, you got to come to the Bolling Show. So let me get this straight. Let me just get this straight. Pocahontas commanded the auto pen for Biden. Hunter Biden pardoned himself. You got anything new for us on a Wednesday? By the way, the revelations. Talk about your treason. Can't wait to see those mugshots. All right. Let me just say the word allegedly here, and let's carry on. All the way across allegedly starts right now from here, allegedly forward. Ends when I say allegedly. So don't come at me, snowflakes. It was just 6 months ago. On December 1st of last year, the pardon of Hunter Biden was the pardon heard around the world, made all the news and made all the more shocking because of how many times Joe Biden swore up and down he wouldn't pardon Hunter Biden.
But let me ask you, will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
Even his mouthpiece said the same.
His son, Hunter, is also up for being sentenced next month. Does the president have any intention of pardoning him?
We've been asked that question multiple times. Our answer stands, which is no.
What happened to her? What happened? Is she going to go away to lie camp or something? Hunter Biden convicted of federal gun charges that 1990 Senator Joe Biden never, ever would have forgiven. And suddenly Joe Biden took action after he watched his son being, quote, selectively and unfairly prosecuted. Sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it? But we all know what else was involved, don't we? We all knew and know full well now that Joe Biden played a recurring role in then Chinese and Ukrainian business relationships involved with Hunter in that tax case. We all knew then and know now that those pardons didn't just help Junior, they helped Daddy too. And so the auto pen signatures on most pardons ever signed by a president, 8,000 plus signatures by auto pen. one of the biggest scandals in our history, which at the heart of it is the cover-up of Joe Biden's mental and physical health and declining mental and physical health, getting bigger and bigger by the day. People keep throwing Watergate around. Jake Tapper tossed it into an interview to make it seem like he cares, gives a crap about the gravity of the situation. I think that doesn't begin to cover it. Now, there are talks of Biden staffers selling pardons and acts of clemency. Folks, I don't think we really understand. We knew, of course, we all knew just how controversial these pardons were on the way out. All you had to do was look at the sheer numbers. An astounding 8,064 pardons by Joe Biden. We're talking about treason here on many levels. These auto pen signatures, who did they come from? Who was actually pressing go on the auto pen? Staffers? Members of Congress? Jill? Hunter? Well, according to White House AI and crypto czar David Sachs, Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren was on the other side of that auto pen on many of them. Kind of crystallizes moments like this, doesn't it?
Do you regret saying that President Biden had a mental acuity? He had a sharpness to him. You said that up until July of last year.
I said what I believe to be true.
And you think he was as sharp as you?
I said I had not seen decline. And I hadn't at that point.
You did not see any decline from 2024 Joe Biden to 2021 Joe Biden?
Not when I said that.
So what if now, just go with me here, what if the people who fought the hardest and the loudest to cover up Joe's condition were the ones at those auto pens? The Elizabeth Warrens, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Chucky Schumers, the Timu Obama, Hakeem Jeffries, the Jamie Raskins of the world. What if those were the ones who just wouldn't let up when asked about Biden's obvious dementia-ridden state? What if those are the ones at the auto pen running the country? Pretty frightening, right? I mean, what's worse? Joe Biden running the country comatose, or Elizabeth and Nancy in any state or form, Indian or not? No wonder they just want to move forward on all this.
Look, we're just looking forward.
Just a reminder that if the mainstream media actually concerned themselves with journalism, they would be livid right now. They'd be ticked off and investigating this deeper as they should on behalf of, I don't know, the American freaking people. Are you kidding me? And by the way, Jake Tapper writing a book now doesn't count as investigating. It tries to clear himself. An incapacitated president has surrounding staffers and politicians doing his bidding for him. His son acts as a chief of staff, unbeknownst to the American people, and then possibly issues himself a pardon, one that also spreads to his father and his family. What are we doing here? Let me say it again, allegedly, just so you snowflakes don't get upset. And so it makes sense, given that we more than likely had a shadow government of sorts in place throughout the entire Biden presidency, or at the very least, I don't know, the last 2 years, maybe more. It makes sense now. The Democrats are proposing this laughable group for the laughable notion that they know anything about how to run a government in a country. Clearly, the benefit of the country isn't interesting to them. It's not what they're all about. They've shown time and time again their power-hungry fury and the Trump administration hatred. Well, that is everything to them. Makes sense to them. Doesn't suit them that more than half the country is happy with what president is doing, maybe 2/3 of the country right now. And they're happy with the direction of the country under Trump. So these idiots, they're hatching a plan to screw it all up or to try and save face, whichever comes first. The Democrats are flailing and more desperately by the day. So why not? Shockingly, Cory Booker wetting his adult diapers on the Capitol floor for 25 hours didn't work. And the $2 store, Timu Obama, singing folk songs on the steps of the Capitol, well, that didn't move the needle either. Bernie Sanders fighting the oligarchy by flying private jets around the country didn't work. Surely that may have improved things for them. No? Nope. Answer is no. Or at least the Democrats' answer. So-called shadow cabinet. And wait until you hear which winners made that list. It's an idea first proposed by Michigan Senator Alisa Slotkin. at least Slotkin, at least, a so-called shadow cabinet, which means you have one figure who speaks for the operation on a particular issue, a shadow secretary of state, a shadow secretary of defense, and so on and so forth. And instead of having many voices drowning each other out, pick one for each issue, presumably your best. Get this, Letitia James was proposed as a shadow attorney general. Letitia James, the one who had so much Trump derangement syndrome, she spent millions of dollars in New York to prosecute Trump, and it failed. You know, the one who's allegedly now guilty, allegedly, of mortgage fraud, among other things. Or how about little Samantha Power as a shadow secretary of state who ran USAID as a corrupt fund? You remember that? We're still finding out how corrupt USAID is. Or how about Mark Cuban, shadow secretary of state? Katie Hobbs, shadow education secretary. What about Giselle Fetterman, wife of the Senator John Fetterman, for shadow Homeland Security secretary? This is the best they've got. This is what they were proposing. The only thing these people are the shadow of is actual politicians. They know they're in dire straits. So they're spending, what, $20 million on consultations to figure out why young white men have left the party. Kind of reinforces the issue, doesn't it? Nobody cares about a shadow cabinet, and they never will. And with AOC, Jasmine Crockett, and the rest of them as heads of their party, the only way to go from here is down. These people are sick. 2.5 minutes. We'll be right back. Mad Dog, that's more like it. Honolulu, Hawaii, as they say. Honolulu, Hawaii. That is way better than a hill in New Mexico. I'm going to say it's a great live shot, folks. We're live, and Mad Dog puts up live shots. All right, folks. Mayor Pete, remember Mayor Pete? Bridges and tunnels are racist. Mayor Pete. Well, Buttigieg did something so noble and honorable. I just had to share it with you. Here we are. What is it? End of May 2025, and Pothole Pete has finally had that look for yourself in the mirror moment and tell the truth. Took years, but Pete's finally ready to come to peace with the fact that he and the Dems completely botched their COVID response. Listen.
We're in the middle of COVID, and you're Pete from today, and you get to talk to Pete from back then, or maybe Biden from back then, and you get to give them some advice, that would maybe prevent us from having this current president. What do you think y'all should have done differently?
One, for the love of God, figure out a way to get the schools open sooner. We got very knee-jerk about this, and the costs were not just politically, but in a profound way. I think for the generation, the costs were profound, and I think anybody who's involved, who was, by the way, obviously doing their best to deal with a crisis that killed a million Americans.
Sure.
But I think most people involved would like to be able to have found a way to safely get more schools open more quickly.
Let me tell you something. He's not apologetic. He's not come to Jesus moment. He's running for president in 2028 already. I know it. You know it. They know it. You want to know something? He's probably their best hope at this point right now. Mad Dog, skip this one. Let's jump to the next one. All right, let's skip down to the next one. All those screaming, crying, whining Democrats. Well, remember they were crying about Elon Musk, the first buddy, and they thought he was running the country or something. We got some news for you. Apparently, Elon Musk wasn't all that thrilled about Trump's big, beautiful spending bill. Listen to this.
I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, doesn't decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, everything he's done on Doge gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
Yeah, so if it's all you nut jobs out there who thought Musk was running the country, Trump likes him. He likes him. He's the first buddy. It's fine. Musk got a little upset. He got a little frustrated. He feels that Doge wasn't being treated properly, that Doge was going to get blamed for anything bad that happened, especially obviously Musk doesn't like this massive spending bill. Musk. Can you imagine a world where Ellen DeGeneres, that Ellen DeGeneres had anything nice to say about Donald Trump? But there was a day believe it or not, there was a time when Ellen DeGeneres wanted President Trump, well, currently President Trump, but not then, wanted Donald Trump to marry her mom. Watch this blast from the past.
I see a beautiful woman up there. That's your mother, isn't it, huh?
Yeah. Look at her.
Hello.
Yeah.
How
are you? And she's available if you're interested. I'd like to offer her.
She's very pretty, actually.
So,
I'm pretty sure Trump wasn't or isn't going to go for Ellen DeGeneres' mom. By the way, beautiful Melania. He's doing just fine. Chicago Mayor, let's go, Brandon Johnson, tried to ruin Memorial Day. We told you about this yesterday, shouting out Africa. Apparently, the Democrats aren't done taking shots at our nation's most sacred holidays. Here's a liberal crybaby who plans on protesting this year's 4th of July holiday. Watch.
We boycott all of their shows. We boycott the charade. We don't gather in parks to celebrate an illusion. We won't pretend that explosions overhead make us independent while our rights, our voices, and our futures are being sold off behind our backs. Instead, we reclaim the day with solidarity and silence. Gather with your friends. Gather with your families. Support your local independently owned businesses. Turn this day into a true declaration, not of fake independence, but of real, grounded community.
Now, that nutjob, snowflake crybaby. Yeah, right. Okay, man, that was great. Who wrote that banner? I love this. Leftist crybaby. Just to get that off my screen. That's not my screen. That was the other one. Someone's going to pick that up. Screenshot Eric Bolling with leftist crybaby. That's better. There we go. That's better. I love it. That guy was great. That was who wrote that? Mad Dog? Who wrote it?
It was Trish.
I want to give him credit. Trish wrote it. I love it, Trish. Good job. Leftist crybaby. The View just dropped their latest, nastiest lie about Trump. Well, one of them. I don't understand how there's ever any other outrage, not enough outrage against these ladies. By the way, they were almost told to tone it down or get canceled. Listen to this one.
It's nice to see.
But it sounds like he's doing a set at the Laugh Factory.
Yeah. It was about time we heard him give the Gold Star families their due. It was about time he did that because he spoke and said, we're proud of our Gold Star families. This is the first time, at least maybe, unless you've heard him do it.
No, he's hosted them at the White House in his first term.
Right, but the last time we collectively heard him talking about Gold Star families, it was not positive.
Who could hear all that in the midst of all of that stuff?
I mean, I heard that because it was something that I needed to have him say.
I said cancel them. They've been warned. I said cancel them. We'll be back in 2.5 minutes, folks. Mad Dog.
Yes, sir.
Where is this?
Tbilisi, Georgia.
Tell me what part of the state do you think that is?
It's
what?
It's the country.
Thank you.
Georgia.
Thank you. Good job. You know how we knew? Because it was dark. All right, folks. Before we finish the show, I just want to remind you about the podcast. Podcast is crushing it, doing the Diddy trial for the last 2 weeks. It's out of control what's going on with that Diddy trial. Barack Obama was mentioned today. Kamala Harris was mentioned yesterday. It's going to get crazy. It's going to get nuts. Subscribe there. Any one of those places, just hit subscribe. It's free. It'll always be free. And thank you for joining. The podcast is blowing up. Also, I want to talk to you a little bit about two big pieces of news came out over the last couple. It's not really news, but interesting stuff. I want to talk David Hogg. Remember, he was the kid who was at the Parkland. He was one of the kids who survived the Parkland shooting, but he's been a really outspoken Democrat. That the DNC, he was the vice chair of the DNC. They're trying to get rid of him. Remember, Hakeem Jeffries wants to get rid of him because David Hogg wants to change all the current mainstream Bernie Sanders, all the Democrats. He wants to change them out, get new people in. Hakeem Jeffries doesn't like that. So David Hogg I guess either gave an interview or was secretly taped with Project Veritas and told them who was really running the White House for the last few years. Take a listen carefully to this.
Foundational question for me is like, how corrupt is the DNC if so many people knew or few people knew about Biden? Well, the president of the United States.
I mean, I think the fact of the matter is the DNC is always going to be like a campaign arm of the president, ultimately. The bigger issue was like the inner circle that was around Biden. That's it.
And I can't stress to you enough.
Like Joe Biden's chief of staff, like had an enormous amount of power.
Joe Biden?
Joe Biden's chief of staff.
That was like an open secret at the level. Like, I would avoid him. Like, he was scary.
What was his name?
Anthony from Congress.
I've never seen him.
Exactly.
What do you mean?
He's like a shadowy, like, Wizard of Oz type figure. That's what made him so, like, I knew how he looked, but I'm like, the general public wouldn't know how this man looked. But he wielded an enormous amount of power, and I can't stress to you how much power he had in the White House.
So David Hogg, who is in the know, the DNC is basically a wing of the Democrat White Houses, including Biden and Obama at the time. David Hogg telling Project Veritas, James O'Keefe's group, that I believe it was Jill Biden's chief of staff. Joe Biden's chief of staff was Ron Klain. I think it was Jill Biden's chief of staff was essentially running the White House for the past 2.5 years. Are you kidding me? And then we hear that the auto pen was being used and abused and traded and sold pardons. Folks, you don't dislike them enough. You haven't been lied to enough that you just never vote Democrat again. No, don't even talk to Democrats. Don't even go to cocktail parties. This one is interesting. We saw this video, right? We saw Macron's wife, Brigitte, push him in the face, kind of punch him in the face. Well, New York Post, according to the New York Post today, just revealed that they have a lip reader. Now get this, lip reader reveals what French President Macron's wife, Brigitte, said moments after shoving him in the face. And if you watch carefully as she passes him, she appears to mutter the words, dégage, espace, des loser, translated in English. Again, the New York Post, folks. Stay away, you loser. Can't make it up. Not us. New York Post says, stay away, you loser. You know what? I kind of get that. Does Candace Owens have an opinion on that? We'll ask her later.